The observation chamber hummed with the sterile efficiency of advanced xenobiology equipment, but the silence within was deafening. Dr. Ilara Min pressed her palm against the transparent barrier, her breath fogging the reinforced glass as she watched the 3 Katherine cubs huddled in the far corner of their enclosure. Their iridescent fur, which should have shimmered with the vibrant blues and greens of youth, had dulled to a sickly gray. It had been 6 days since they'd eaten. Dr. Min, the council is demanding answers. Commander Vex's voice crackled through her comm link, sharp with barely concealed frustration. These cubs are the last of their kind. If they die under our care, they won't die, Ilara interrupted, though her voice carried less certainty than she would have liked. She'd tried everything the xenobiological database suggested. Replicated Katherine vegetation, synthesized proteins matching their homeworld's fauna, even live specimens transported at great expense from the nearest Katherine colony world. The cubs had sniffed each offering with their triple nostrils, then retreated further into their corner. The largest cub, no bigger than a terrier, made a low keening sound that vibrated through the observation glass. Ilara's translator struggled with the frequency, producing only static and fragmented words. Mother, dark, cold. Have you considered they're simply mourning? Vex suggested, his tone softening slightly. Their entire world was destroyed. Perhaps they've chosen to follow their kind into extinction. Ilara shook her head firmly. No, Katherines are survivors. Their evolutionary history shows incredible adaptation to catastrophic events. This is something else. She'd been studying the cubs' behavior meticulously, noting every movement, every sound. The other xenobiologists had focused on nutritional requirements and environmental conditions. But Ilara, a human among a crew of 17 different species, had been watching for something different. Something the data might miss. The cubs moved in synchronization, always touching, their small bodies pressed together. When one shifted, the others adjusted. When the smallest, Ren, Ilara had named him in her notes, made a sound, the others responded with harmonious tones. It reminded her of something from Earth, from the old documentaries about wolves and their pack dynamics. But it was more than that. Ilara accessed her personal database, scrolling past Katherine physiology and habitat requirements to something she'd bookmarked weeks ago. A study on human child development and the critical importance of emotional bonding. She'd read it during a sleepless night, homesick and missing her nephew's birthday party. Could it be that simple? The scientific community had always praised humanity's capacity for lateral thinking, for making intuitive leaps that more logically minded species often missed. It was why humans had become such valuable members of the Galactic Council, despite being one of the newer spacefaring races. They saw patterns where others saw only data. Ilara stood abruptly, her decision made. She bypassed 3 security protocols. She'd answer to Commander Vex later, and entered the cubs' enclosure through the auxiliary airlock. The environmental systems immediately adjusted for her presence, compensating for her different respiratory needs. The cubs' heads snapped toward her in unison, their 6 eyes, 2 per cub, widening in what the translator interpreted as fear. They pressed themselves against the wall, their keening intensifying. I know, Ilara said softly, deactivating her translator and speaking in plain English. The words didn't matter. The tone did. She lowered herself to the floor, sitting cross-legged about 3 meters from them. I know you're scared. I know everything's wrong. The food doesn't taste right because it doesn't feel right, does it? She'd brought nothing with her. No food, no equipment, no scientific instruments. Just herself. For 20 minutes she simply sat there, humming a lullaby her mother used to sing. The melody was old, probably pre-spaceflight, something about stars and sailing ships. The cubs' keening gradually subsided, replaced by a curious silence. Then Ilara did something that would later be debated in xenobiological circles for decades. She extended her hand, palm up, and projected her own emotions outward, something humans had learned to do through biofeedback training for interspecies communication. Not words, not thoughts, but pure feeling, warmth, safety, protection, care. Ren moved first. The smallest cub detached from his siblings, taking one tentative step forward, then another. His companions made distressed sounds but didn't follow. Ren's tiny body trembled as he approached, his nostrils flaring as he sampled Ilara's scent. When he reached her hand, he didn't sniff it. Instead, he pressed his forehead against her palm and began to purr, a deep, resonant sound that Alara felt in her bones. The translator, still monitoring from outside, suddenly activated with crystal clarity. Warm, safe, pack mother. Tears blurred Alara's vision as understanding crashed over her. The Katherines weren't just a social species, they were an empathically bonded one. The cubs hadn't been rejecting food. They'd been rejecting the absence of emotional connection that came with it. Every meal had been delivered by robots or through automated systems. Efficient, sterile, empty. The cubs had been starving for something no nutritional analysis could measure. They needed someone to care. Within minutes, the other two cubs joined Wren, pressing against Alara's legs, her sides, her chest. Their purring synchronized into a complex harmonic that made the air shimmer. She wrapped her arms around them, and for the first time in 6 days, they began to eat, not from bowls or dispensers, but from her hands, as she carefully offered each morsel with intention and warmth. Commander Vex's voice exploded through the comlink. "Dr. Min, what are you doing? The contamination protocols can wait," Alara replied calmly, stroking Wren's head as he ate. "I'm feeding them what they actually need, later." After the cubs had finally eaten their fill and fallen asleep in a pile around her, after the council had reviewed the footage and the xenobiological community had begun revising their entire approach to orphaned alien youth, Commander Vex would ask her how she'd known. Alara's answer was simple. Because humans were once cubs too, and we remember what it felt like to be alone. The Katherine cubs would thrive under Alara's care, eventually growing into magnificent adults who would help repopulate their species. But they would never forget their pack mother, the human who had understood what every child in the universe needs, regardless of how many legs they have or what color their fur might be. Sometimes the most advanced solution is the most ancient one. Love, offered freely without expecting anything in return. And sometimes, it takes a human to remember that.